Well, hello my friends, it's Shawn Petite and welcome to my YouTube channel. Happy Sunday to you. Look at this grungy goodness, happiness all in one piece, and look at these wonderful products we'll be using today. I am starting today's project on an 11 by 17 MDF board, and I grabbed just my scraps of paper. I had no I didn't really care too much about the pattern. All I really cared about was the color. These were just old scrapbook papers that were in my stash, and I grabbed them because they were very warm, kind of neutral, and would lend itself to really being kind of grungy, old world, wall looking kind of thing. So they worked perfectly, and I just kind of cut them up and dispersed them around the piece. Put them all down with my Liquitex matte medium. So now I have Nouveau expanding mousse, Prima's redesigned chalk paste, and DecoArt's crackle paint. And we're about to load this up with some texture. So the Nouveau expanding mousse, if you've not seen me use it before, it's super thick, really thick and yummy goodness. But when you put it down and you heat it with your heat tool, it starts to expand and bubble and make this crazy good textural pattern. And so that's what I just wanted to get, as much texture on this piece as I possibly could. And so then I thought I'm going to use it through a stencil and see how it looks. And it was wonderful. This works so beautifully through stencils to get a really crisp and clean stencil line, and then to hit it with the heat tool and get that texture. It's so good. So I am working the areas on opposite sides of the piece to keep the eye moving, to balance the piece out. I'm also overlapping what sections I do. So I do a section at a time, especially with the Nouveau expanding mousse, because you've got to heat it up to get it to do its thing. And I don't want it to dry too much. And then I'll just come back over with the next thing and make sure to overlap the edges so that everything blends seamlessly. So this is the Nouveau expanding mousse as well in the gray matter. The other was Tuscan Sun, and this one's called gray matter. And all of the products that I'm using today are in the blog post, and the blog post link is down below in the YouTube description box, so you can take a look at the full description of everything that I'm using and more pictures and all that. So again, I'm using my Mediterranean Duo stencil here, and they have different patterns on opposite sides of the stencil, so it worked perfectly. And I'm just using, again, that Nouveau expanding mousse in gray matter is the color. And they dry so good. They just darken up like they've been weathered and worn, but it's got a little tiny bit of shimmer to it. It's just fantastic. Now I've got my DecoArt crackle paint, not paste, but crackle paint. And this is one of my favorite products. I use it all the time. You can add color to it if you want. You can use it just like I'm using it. It works every time. The crackles are fantastic. So again, I'm overlapping the edges, going over the edges of the other material, which again brings everything together and then just, you know, doubles up on all of that texture. Spreading it throughout the piece, really gonna get some good crackle on this. Then I get the Prima's redesigned chalk paste, and this has its own wonderful qualities. Because it's a chalk paste, it dries so chalky that how things, when you put the acrylic inks that we're going to put on it, how it soaks in, how it looks like old plaster. And so each one of the mediums that I'm using has a different texture, and that's what I was going for. I wanted all of that different texture, and all of that different texture will take the paint differently, it'll move the paint differently. And so I'm just going to kind of push the super dark colors back just a tiny bit. Not a lot, but I'm using gesso to do that. It also helped because the Nouveau expanded and had like little bubbles and things like that. It gave it a little bit of a smoother edge to get the color on. But you can see how it dried, how that really came through, and just this alone, how it looks right here, is fantastic. But so now I grabbed my FNW Daler and Rowney acrylic ink in sepia, and I'm just going to get as much water as possible on this piece and really move that acrylic ink around, because the more that it's fluid, the more it's going to sink into all of those crevices and really accentuate all that texture and give me that truly organic, really rustic feel that I'm looking for. And you can see as soon as I spray that and it starts, the pattern just immediately shows up. It's just so wonderful. This kind of stuff makes me happy. But the more wet it is, the more it just soaks in. And then once you let it dry, just the way that it is, it's just so good. I picked up just a tiny bit so that there was some variation in how it was going to lay down. But not too much. I really wanted it to be really free. So now that it's dry, I have printed out some words on the computer, and they all go along with the inspiration and the conversation that we'll have at the end about this piece and the meaning. But I just printed these out on the computer and put them down with my Liquitex Map Medium. And then I didn't want them to be just stuck on there, you know, so bright and shiny. So I really wanted to dial that down just a bit and really kind of make them feel like they're part of the piece. And so I just added some gesso with my finger and really kind of smooshed out the edges so that it felt, again, organic and that it was blending in with the piece and it wasn't just a brand new thing. And there'll be so much color and stuff on it that it'll all work together. So now I grabbed an old book and I just started cutting out words that meant something to me, that were speaking to me with regards to this piece and the message. And every single one was just like, every time I came across it, I was like, yes, it was a big yes. And so each one went down into the story of this piece. And everything that we create has a story, right? Everything that I create has a story, I should say. So I'm just putting those down with some matte medium. So now we're going to bring on the color. This is Golden's turquoise, phthalo turquoise, and it is one of my favorite colors. Absolutely one of my favorite colors. And I've got it really loose, and this is the high flow, and the high flow works really well in this application to get it really loose and wet and juicy, because it's already that. It's already very loose and drippy and wonderful. So when you add color to it, it doesn't dull down the color at all. I mean, when you add water to it, it doesn't dull down the color. Now I grabbed Lucas's liquid acrylic paint, and these are new to me and I'm loving them. And again, this is a more fluid paint. It's like a fluid acrylic, and it's perfect to be able to water down and keep your vibrant colors. So the first color I used was terracotta, and this is yellow ochre. And again, all of those colors and everything will be listed on the blog in the supplies section. And I'm mixing now the two, the terracotta and the yellow ochre, together to get just a really good grungy, yummy feel. And I'm bringing that color onto the other side, again, to move the viewer's eye around the piece, to make it cohesive, to balance it out so that it doesn't feel lopsided. And so I'm just adding some more of that teal, and then I'm going to grab some DecoArt Media Cobalt Teal, and because it's just a little bit brighter. It's just got a brighter feel, and I'm wanting variation, And when you have color variation, you gain interest. Too much color variation is confusing, so you have to be careful. So I'm just creating lights and darks to really add contrast. And so I get that high flow teal on there and just spray it down, and it just fans out so beautifully in all of the texture. It's just so good. Just a few sprinkles of that dark phthalo turquoise, again to add interest. And then I'm going to grab some more of that sepia in the acrylic ink and just really start adding some of that depth, that dark versus that light contrast. So I'm really adding a lot of the darks here, just a little bit, again for interest and contrast. I will grab, once I get all of this down, then I'll grab a soft pastel, a Soho soft pastel, and go around the edges. I go around the edges with this sepia too. It's so beautiful. But I'll add some marks and different things like that with my black soft pastel as well. And that is about it, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please subscribe, like, and ask me any questions if you have with regards to what I'm doing today, and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Stick around for the conversation at the end. It's a good one. It's a really good one. And I will see you next week. Well, hello, loves. Happy Sunday to you. This is just the most yummy, grungy goodness I have created in a very long time. I just am so positively in love with this. I'm going to give you some close-ups at the end after I talk, but I'm going to film how, I mean, you just, the texture is so good. Oh, I love it. So I went over everything throughout the video. I only used one stencil in this piece. It is the Mediterranean Duo 1 or 2. But that'll be on sale this week. And I did this so differently. Like I put down papers that were just random bits of stuff that I had lying around, nothing special, but kind of all along in the same color family that would lend itself to kind of that grungy goodness. But I mean, I had an idea for this, and I had lots and lots of words and emotion rolling around with this piece as well. So it's one of those ones where I'm like, I just have to start. I just have to get it out. And if it's a total flop, you know, it'll go in the stack and I'll remake it. If it works, it works. And it worked. And I just positively love it. And I struggled a little bit with it because I loved the texture so much that I didn't want to take away from anything, but I knew that I wanted to add the meaning and the story into it. And so, yeah, so I just basically printed out the original words that I put down, which were grateful, breathe, discover, strength. Anyway, you've seen them all. And then I came back and I cut out words from a book as I just went through, because I had all this emotion, and I'll talk about that in a second. I had all this emotion going on within me. And I just needed to put some words to everything. I don't know if you ever feel like that sometimes there's just so much happening, and you can't, being able to express it just sometimes just doesn't come. And for me, that's why I create. That's why I started creating. That's why I create with a message, and I share that message, because art is a way that communicates with so many people. It helps me communicate my feelings and my emotions and my stuff without really having to utter a word. It's it's my therapy. It's cheaper than a therapist. But what inspired this piece was I just, the weeks have been really, really crazy, and crazy in a good way. The growth is phenomenal as to what's happening within the business. Along with that is the growing pains. You know, we're hiring another person, just getting systems in place. We had orders that were screwed up this week just because we can't keep up, and those kinds of things. And in the midst of all of that, I'm super excited and super frightened and super brave and super scared. And I was struggling with, Shawn, you know, come on, you've got this, that kind of thing. And then I thought, why can't I be all of those things at the same time? I can be brave and have courage. That is a daily thing when you run a business, when you're an entrepreneur. You have to be brave because you just never know. But I can also, on the flip side, be scared, be frightened. And I put all of those words in here because every single word had a meaning. Like this one says promised, and I promised myself when I started that I would continue to grow and change and work the business. All these different things. This one says woman awoke, astonished, loved, stretched herself, long journey. That's, a business is a long journey. Servant, I want to do what I do with a servant's heart. Light was shining. That was like, whatever I do, however I do it, whether I'm shipping out orders or I'm teaching or I'm giving you free videos on YouTube, whatever it is within my business, I want to shine light into your life. This one says voice. I want to have a voice when it comes to creating and encouraging. My voice is to encourage you to be brave in your own art, in your own life, in your own way. This one says frightened. I'm frightened most days. You guys know that about me. I deal with anxiety. I'm afraid of, just about everything, but I do it afraid. I do everything afraid. And then when I do everything afraid, that means I'm brave. And there was one that says breathe. I'm constantly saying, just breathe, Shawn, just breathe. Breathe through the growing pains because it's super scary. We're growing so fast. All those kinds of things. So all of that, I say all of that because what I'm going through is not any different than what each of you go through. And it may not be business-wise, but it may be art, it may be relationships, it may be transitions. I know so many of you are in transitions in your life where you're leaving behind a career and moving on to new and exciting things. But in that process is all of these jumbled feelings. And what I want to say is feel the feels. Feel them all. And if you can't, I write every day. I write a lot because it's the only way that I can process all the stuff that's going on and not feel like I'm a crazy person. Not to say that I don't feel like I'm a crazy person some days, but process all of your feelings. Feel them. Don't discount any of them. Don't discount being frightened and brave in the same sentence. Like make a move and then take 2 steps back. That's all part of the process. And we have to learn to be able to give ourselves grace because we would allow that for somebody else, but we don't allow it for ourselves. And we need to talk to ourselves like we would talk to somebody else. And say that it's okay to feel strong and weak, to feel brave and frightened, to feel like you're a servant and you have nothing to give. All of those things play a part, and we work through them. And the striving, the process is the striving. Am I going to be a servant 100% of the time? No. Am I going to be brave 100% of the time? No. Am I going to be any of these 100% of the time? No. It's our life. It's our journey. And all we can do in the busyness, the change, the transition, the decisions, the stuff, the business, whatever it is do our best. and allow ourselves some grace to be human, to be human. We're not pictures on Pinterest. Our lives aren't perfectly planned out. Nothing is as it appears on social media. We are human beings and we're messy. And I say embrace the freaking mess. That's all we can do sometimes. So, my loves, I say all that to just encourage you to not be disheartened by your own mess, by your own crazy words and things that are rolling around inside of you, that it's okay. And it's part of life, and it is what it is, and you are wonderful and good and worthy and all of those things. Feel the feelings, allow yourself some grace, and give yourself some rest. All right, my loves, I hope you have a wonderful Sunday, and I hope that you can create this week and allow yourself to feel all the feelings. And I hope that you always, always know that you are loved.